Hey guys, Joe and Mike here. We're going to do a breakdown of the Archon Wizard and share what builds we think are effective for MP farming, low MP farming that is, which really is the best way to get legendaries. Believe me, it is. So we'll run through the skills here, find out if we can get your guys' build going. The three skills that you really should always use, and the rune isn't necessarily something that needs to be constant, but the three skills you're going to use in the Archon build are obviously Archon, magic weapon. You usually want force weapon on there. You can use blood magic if you need the life leech. If I was smart, I would, and I typically do. Not in this set though. And spark flint as a rune for familiar. Those three skills are core to the Archon build. And you're always going to want an armor in one slot, but what armor that is debatable. If you do enough damage, I think storm armor personally is the way to go with the rune scramble. Helps the run go by faster. In some cases it can even save your life, which obviously also helps the run go by faster. You don't want to be going back to where you were and walking through the levels. Obviously, when you're low MP farming, you're also trying to EXP grind faster, so dying's no good. But if your DPS is lower than, say, 200k, you might consider going with force armor, with pinpoint barrier, or energy armor rather, with pinpoint barrier. I think that that is a really nice DPS boost if you're struggling there, and obviously that would outweigh the storm armor if you're low in the DPS department. So if you're under 200k, I would go with energy armor and pinpoint barrier. As far as the primary skill goes, I mean, take your pick. It doesn't really matter that much. I think a lot of people use Spectral Blade with Throwing Blade because it does do more damage, and with the Rune Throwing Blade, it extends your range. It's a nice move, it definitely is. Some people might use Healing Blade. I wouldn't in an Archon build, but that's just my opinion. And then you'll have others go with Electrocute with some rune. I mean, it's pretty flexible here. I might go with Forked Lightning because I think it can help you have a nice area of effect, but I mean, a lot of these runes work really well. So, I mean, as far as the primary skill goes, again, take your pick. And the last slot, it honestly doesn't matter. I mean, you really only need 5 skills for the Archon build to work well. I use Teleport because I'm lazy, and when I am done with a level, when I have to go back somewhere, I just pop out of Archon and teleport there to get there faster, save some time. I would use Wormhole if you're going to use teleport. And then I guess the last thing I would go over on the 6 skill slots, passives notwithstanding, is what rune you want to use for the Archon. If you are good on DPS and you're doing a low MP like I do MP2, I would probably go with teleport because it can get you out of getting stuck from like frozen from mobs or jailer, and it really does help the run move by a little faster. So if you're good in DPS, go with that. If you're low on DPS, or maybe you're doing a little higher MP for your Archon build, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you are, improved Archon might be the way to go, because obviously that gives you more damage. You see it increases all damage of Archon abilities by 25%. So, I mean, that's also preference, but if you're good on damage and you're doing a low MP, teleport's pretty nifty. Now, as for passives, critical mass, galvanizing ward, and glass cannon are all things I would recommend. There's not as much wiggle room, in my opinion, here as there would be in some of the primary slots you're using. But with the passives, these three are pretty good. Obviously, glass cannon goes without saying, increases your damage. You do sacrifice a little bit of armor and resistances, but I honestly don't think it really matters that much, especially in low MP. I think the damage outweighs what you lose. And Galvanizing Ward I personally would use because when you're doing low MP and you start to get adequate damage, meaning 200k plus for DPS, it's really nice to have this because then you can keep your armor on longer. And the life regen is kind of nice. It's not essential at all by any means. I think it will be for PvP. That's my personal opinion. If any of you played D2, you know that kind of the 40 life rep was where you wanted to be. And then critical mass. Every time you critical hit something, you have a chance to reduce a cooldown, which is obviously nice, especially if you're not running into really dense areas. You can hopefully get your Archon back up pretty quickly. And then I guess as far as gear goes, you by no stretch need the gear I have. Really, what's essential to the Archon build is having a black damage weapon, meaning you want minimum and maximum damage as opposed to elemental damage, because the boost you get from an item like Triumvirate comes from the percent damage, lightning, fire, and arcane. That will only work on a black weapon or a weapon with minimum and maximum damage. An elemental weapon will have no effect from the percent damage modifiers, and an Archon Wizard definitely wants that because this is a build about speed, runs, and killing things as fast as possible, and this is truly the best way to go. So, I mean, get yourself a Triumvirate and a black damage weapon. If it doesn't need base crit even, just a socket, and really you do want lifesteal. I don't use it personally because I'm trying to get myself geared for PvP, and I've been spending gold in mass on some different items for both myself and my pals, so we're well equipped for that. But if you really want to efficiently farm, and I mean as well as you can, get lifesteal, because reflex damage mobs are a pain in the butt if you don't. Even on MP2 with my gear, I have to be careful with them. I really do. And then I guess the other items you would want to try to get are a pair of Zuni boots, because obviously those have percent damage on them as well. Try to go for 8 if you can't afford it. That's fine. I mean, it's not going to make a huge difference. And you don't necessarily need all res on them. You really don't. Just get a nice pair with high int and some vit, and then some variation of Talzami. You could try to get crit on it. That would be really nice if you could. They are pretty expensive. I think that the lowest they go is like 30 or 40 mil with crit on them. And if you want attack speed, well, you're going to have to pay about 500 mil for them. Attack speed's really expensive to add on. If you do have the golds, I personally would go for average damage right now, because it gives you essentially the same damage boost as attack speed would, but it's about 200 to 300 mil less depending on what you're comparing it to and what you're looking at. I paid 190 for this, and an amulet with attack speed on it, a Talrash's that is, that would add similar DPS, ran about 400 or 500 at a minimum. So Talzami is another great thing, obviously, because the percent damage modifies the black weapon, and you know, obviously that'll help you get over 200k. It really will. And even if you're doing like 130 to 150, you can still farm pretty efficiently. So I mean, that's our breakdown of the Archon Wizard build. I think it's easily the best build to farm legendaries on, just because you can rip through low MPs very, very quickly, and you can get done with Alkalizer runs, if you guys know what those are, in about 15 minutes with a decent Archon Wizard. And legendaries will drop. They will drop. So, I mean, if you have the budget, which, I mean, you could get a good Archon Wizard running for, like, honestly, 15 or 20 mil. It could be really good. That's the way to go if you're grinding for gear. I really think it is. So I hope that this video helps you guys out, and if you have any questions, drop us a comment. We'll definitely be doing a giveaway in the next couple days. Stay tuned, guys.